This is Brian with ScreenFiles.com and Review. What I'm looking at today is 2010's I Spit in Your Grave, directed by Stephen Monroe. Stephen Monroe's movie is a remake of the 1978 movie by Marzardi of the same title. And it came at a period of time where revenge movies were very popular. One of the more preeminent examples is 1972's Deliverance, followed by Death Wish 2 years later. The movie revolves around a woman, instead of a man, who is raped by 3 or 4 other people. And she gets her vengeance upon said people. Now the thing is, this is where it gets problematic, because the rape is very realistically rendered. You don't see all of it, much of it is suggested, but then again, nor do you need to see all of it. It would be gratuitous and really disturbing to see all of that rape. So therefore you don't. But what you see is highly suggestive of rape. Clothing being torn off, things being aimed at the vaginal area of the woman. So it's not gratuitous, but it leaves nothing to the imagination as to what is happening to that person. And it's rendered very realistically. It's not, I don't think it's playing to the male fantasy of rape, if only because there are only so many ways you can actually rape a woman, really. And it just follows that. And the important part is it's executed very realistically in any case. Now you go to the vengeance of the woman, and it's done almost like a cartoon, in the sense that what she does is so elaborate, it borders on silly. And this is the problem. As I said, it was rendered so realistically. To have her vengeance turn into a Bugs Bunny cartoon is the oddest thing. And it makes me not sure what the director was trying to do with it. It's not, as I said, it's not anti-woman, but it's not pro-woman either, in that it turns a valid desire for vengeance into silliness. And I know what you're going to say if you've seen this movie. What happened to those men wasn't silly, you probably say. And on the surface, you're right. For instance, and some of these are on YouTube, one man has a shotgun shoved up his ass, and it's actually shot at some point. Another guy is castrated, and another guy is hung, and another guy has his eyelids pinned open by fish hooks. But do you hear what I'm saying? This is the most nonsensical, silly stuff I've ever seen. It's ultra violent to the point of parody. And that makes me wonder, what is the goal of this movie? I don't think a woman seeing this would necessarily be affirmed by what happens, because it doesn't resemble any reality that a person who is raped is likely to experience. The rape is rendered realistically, but the vengeance for said rape is rendered cartoonishly, Rube Goldbergian, and silly. It's the weirdest thing. The biggest problem with this movie, I think, is that it neglects the concept of trauma, in the sense that there are many types and degrees of trauma. The violation of your body is one of the greatest, and that affects the mind as well. The problem is, after that terrible event happens to this woman, she gets enough space in her mind, enough clarity to build these incredible traps, elaborate traps, in places she has never been, in places she does not know the topography of. She shouldn't be able to do this, and that's the problem. The movie didn't have to have her do these things. She could have killed them. And again, I think that would be warranted under the circumstances. But to do so in a manner similar to her violation. In other words, realistically. Now, I mentioned earlier movies like Deliverance and Death Wish, but you'll notice those movies handle the subject much more realistically. Charles Bronson in Death Wish simply went and got a gun and started shooting people. That's a logical reaction in the sense that he's not going to make some elaborate Saw-esque trap to kill these people. Same thing with Deliverance 2 years earlier. Burt Reynolds, when he's going after the people who harmed his friends, he's shooting them with arrows and knives. He has an arrow with him. It's what he knows. It makes sense in context. While I Spit on Your Grave, this woman seems to gain powers and abilities she did not have originally. Oh, by the way, I should mention the movie is very well acted. It's not that it's badly done. It's just that it's sloppy and lazy, particularly as referring to the revenge of the woman. Now, the thing is, in the world of the movie, she is a writer coming to this remote location to write. The movie doesn't tell you what she's writing, which would have actually helped, in the sense that if she were writing, I don't know, murder mysteries, then it would have perhaps explained the elaborate nature of her vengeance. The cartoonish nature of her vengeance would at least have a context, and perhaps in that context make sense. Instead, it's just goofy, because once again, we don't know what she writes, or at least I don't recall the movie telling you what she writes. So therefore, her vengeance comes off as overly elaborate, gratuitously violent, and just weird, and something a normal human would not do, turning the movie into a cartoon, which could have been an effective story about a woman seeking her vengeance against the people who literally upended her universe, turns into a cartoon. And that's the problem. I don't think I Spit on Your Grave is anti-woman, though what it does is shortchange women. It takes away their anger, their vengeance, and expends it on a silly, cartoonish revenge. That's its problem. It's not a bad movie, it's actually watchable, and as I said, Stephen Monroe does a good job directing it, but he also co-wrote it, based on the original 1978 movie. And if only this movie had given its lead character, her vengeance, a little more dignity and respect, this could have been a classic revenge movie. Instead, it's cartoony, it's interesting, but it's also rather silly. This is Brian with ScreenFiles.com and Review. Peace.